Hey, what's up, everyone? Just wanted to give you all a heads up. Next week, in celebration of our 100th episode, we're going to be going live with a very special bonus episode. So mark your calendars, because on March 9th at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we're going to be going live on both Facebook and YouTube. For all additional information, please go to our social medias at S1E1 Pod on Instagram and Twitter, and we'll keep you updated. See you then.
It seems weird to use a handkerchief to wipe off a chair at a coffee shop, and think it would do anything.
And nowadays, your phone is actually probably the dirtiest thing that you carry around with.
Well, the inside of my phone, for sure.
It's just full of brunette girls in glasses trying to run away.
Whoa! That's a totally different lane. Welcome back, everyone, to S1E1, the show where each week we pick a different sitcom, watch just the first televised episode, and forgetting anything we might know about the future run of that show, rate it and decide if it's a show we want to greenlight or cancel. This week we're going to be talking about Frasier. Frasier went 264 episodes over 11 seasons on NBC. Today we're talking about episode 1, which was called The Good Son, originally airing September 16th, 1993. So to get things started, I'm Jay Gags. With me as always, the boys, Gordo, Nick, Joe, and Ferg. What's going on?
Heyo.
Oogetty.
Call me with me hand in the biscuit tin!
I don't know what you just said.
Whatever Joe
Do
said,
I?
he said so loud that that the audio muted him.
I was trying to do Cockney accent from when she says she got her hand caught in the biscuit tin.
Oh.
Speaking of accents, guys, I'm really happy to report that, we're finally cracking the case on the elusive Seattle accent. This show that apparently takes place in Seattle, London, because what the fuck is going on with both of their accents?
For the longest time, I thought they were British. For the longest time, even though the dad is clearly not.
What is that, though? That's technically like a transatlantic accent, right?
I
think
think
it's
right? It's
supposed
like
to be,
the
like, proper,
news accent.
Yeah, they have a
I
weird
think their
dialect.
accents are just more of their education and stuff, more than their location.
Isn't that
Yeah.
what you would call? Isn't that what you would call a Brahmin accent?
The Brahmin Bull.
Damn it, you beat me to
You
it.
beat me to it, too.
We're not covering Young Rock this week. Move on.
But guys, real quick, I want to say, guys, S1E1pod.com, S1E1pod on Twitter and Instagram. Follow us, give us likes, all that stuff. Listen, there's some sort of a disparity between our downloads and how many of you interact with us on Instagram and Twitter. So give us a follow. We appreciate the listens, don't get me wrong. This is why we do the show. But follow us on Instagram and Twitter and talk to us.
Yeah, we want to say hello.
And more fan picks. I'm enjoying doing all the fan picks, so thanks to everybody who does reach out. There are some shows I never would have watched, and then some shows I hadn't seen in a billion years.
This was a fan pick. I'm sorry, I can't remember who reached out. We had talked about doing the show in the past anyways, but someone had asked us not too long ago, and I think it kind of brought it up to the forefront.
This is a pretty big show as far as we go, right? Like, we've only done, I'd say, if it was 10, I'd be surprised, like, considerably popular shows. You know what I
Mega
mean?
hit shows.
Yeah.
Shows that had like a 10 years long as this one, like 11 seasons, 264 episodes. That's a lot.
It has to be one of the biggest spin-offs of all time, too.
Yeah, it's up there.
It's up there with like the Jeffersons and maybe Laverne and Shirley.
Family Matters.
Family Matters.
Yeah.
I always forget, too, that this went right. Like, Frasier Kelsey Grammer worked for 22 years straight between this and Cheers.
As the same character.
And he also won, he was either nominated for or won for 3 separate shows, but playing Frasier. Cheers, Frasier, and his one appearance on Wings. He was either
won
nominated
an award
or...
for that?
Yeah.
Wow. So yeah, this episode particularly got a bunch of awards. Like this pilot, David Angel, Peter Casey, and David Lee won the Primetime Emmy Award for writing this episode. James Burrows won the Directors Guild of America Award and the Primetime Emmy Award for directing this episode. And Kelsey Grammer won the Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Lead Actor in a Comedy Series.
Well, the bar
Just for
must've been
this
really low
episode.
that year.
I thought
I'm
this
not-
episode.
I'm not even talking shit about the show or the episode. I'm just saying that there wasn't anything wildly spectacular that made me go, wow, that was a masterpiece.
Oh, see,
This
no,
is
I think the writing was
I
really
think it's very well
smart.
written, yeah.
And I thought I thought his performance in this was really good.
Also, you get Sideshow Bob and Sideshow Cecil in the same episode. I mean, come on, who can be mad about that?
And then as far as Frasier goes, is there did you guys watch the show in its original run at all?
I didn't. No, I was talking about that. I mean, it ran for over 200 episodes. I'm not even being hyperbolic. I think I have seen officially maybe 3 episodes of this show.
I saw
I'm
a
with
lot.
you.
My mom really liked the show, so I watched it with her a lot. I probably saw more Frasier than I saw Cheers, if we're being completely honest.
See, I'm the opposite there. I love Cheers, and I saw tons of Cheers, but when I was a kid, I thought this was boring. As an adult, I understand it more, but as like a 10-year-old, I don't want to watch Frasier. You know?
That wasn't their demographic, yeah.
Yeah.
I was saying that to my wife earlier, that I watched this as a kid with my mother, and I hated it. It was just like Cheers. Like, absolutely hated it, was not targeted at us. I do not have fond memories of this show.
I forgot you hated Cheers.
Yeah, it's so weird to me that
That
you don't
is
like
so
Cheers.
weird. Is this the first, not the first, I know it's not the first spinoff, but how many spinoffs were there from Cheers? Because there was the Tortellis.
The Tortellis,
was-
which I can't wait to do. And
This-
I think there's
I
one
don't even know
more.
what that is.
That's Carla's husband spinoff.
I don't think it did well. Yeah, it only
did.
did one season, so.
I never even heard of it.
Her husband, I can't forget the actor's name. He's in a million things. He's the dad.
Oh,
in
Danny
Clueless who goes,
DeVito.
Get out of my chair. That guy from Clueless.
Dan Hedaya.
Yeah, Dan Hedaya, thank you.
Was he
He's
also,
also
the
the bad
dad
guy
in
in
Clueless?
Commando.
Was he in Clueless?
He's the dad, yeah. He's the one who says, get out of my chair.
Oh, that's okay.
You know Clueless, that movie about the, 22-year-old law student who's like, nah, I'll just fuck my teenage stepsister instead. That movie's plot is fucking
You
wild
leave Paul
now.
Rudd alone.
Hey, I love Paul Rudd. And in the TV show version of Clueless, it was Danny from Hey Jude who played that character.
It was.
But
Hey,
that said,
Jude.
that is the first real, I'm just gonna fuck my stepsister.
Listen, that set the bar.
It did. It's at
Yeah,
the bar.
that-
We're here forever
The OG.
now. She's just a virgin who can't even drive, who gets stuck inside of dryers all the time.
I was just
Like-
going to say, was she a dryer repair person?
I really want to watch Clueless now.
I guess on that note, we should just get right into the episode. So it starts with a black title screen that says The Job. And they do this kind of from scene to scene. They intro every scene with that. It's very Pulp Fiction.
I love this.
That was a question I had.
Now-
Do they do this in every episode?
I had the same question, yeah.
I don't remember
too.
enough.
I don't remember. I think they used to do it at the beginning of every episode, but I don't remember it over and over.
Because I couldn't tell if this was just like an introductory to the cast or to the story, and that's what they do, or if they did this every episode, because I didn't see enough of it to know.
But even if they don't do it every episode, I think this is a great device for a pilot. To
It's
break everything
fine.
into chapters
Yeah.
this way.
I was okay with it. I didn't love it, but it didn't bother me that much either.
I like how it was like a play, almost. Like Act 1, Act 2.
I
and
thought
so
it
forth.
felt out of place.
Well, that would
but-
explain why 2 characters are walking around thinking they're in fucking Shakespeare the whole time.
But again, that's their background. It makes sense.
They certainly do have unique accents, but you know who else has a unique accent? Bobcat Goldthwait.
Ooh,
Jay,
good
how's
call.
your impression going?
I haven't been working on it. There's no need to.
Isn't next week episode 100?
What do you mean?
What do you mean there's no need to?
Next week's episode 100, and we are not doing Golden Palace for episode 100.
Maybe for episode 104, we should do it.
Yeah, it's going to be the 2-year anniversary episode.
But is this show being streamed anywhere? Is it a Peacock show because it was on NBC?
Yeah, I watched it on
It's got to be
Peacock.
Peacock, yeah.
No, Paramount Plus.
No, I watched it on Peacock
So
today.
it's on both.
Oh, I watched it on Paramount, so.
It's also listed as on Hulu, but the internet lies, and I don't have Hulu anymore.
Yeah,
I
it's listed
checked.
on Amazon too, but I think that's to redirect you through Paramount probably, because you can get Paramount through Amazon, whatever. But yeah, I watched it on Paramount.
And the reason I bring it up is more because when you asked about future episodes, I don't remember because I don't think the show had a lot of syndication as big as it was. I don't really remember seeing it in reruns after it was concluded.
But reruns for sure while it was still on. Like, I remember
Yeah.
being on like a late afternoon show or
Yeah.
early evening show a lot when it was still in its initial run. But again, a show like this ended at the time where we would have all like never been around for primetime TV anymore, or
Yeah.
starting to like move out of after high school. So like, I feel like those are lost years with like knowledge of TV a little.
Yeah. But yeah, to get back into the episode. Show starts and we see Frasier Crane hosting a radio show where he's taking callers and gives them advice because he's a psychiatrist. And again, Kelsey Grammer plays Frasier Crane, did all throughout Cheers, and now he's doing it on this show. In the scene, he's about to take like one final caller, who tells him he's been feeling depressed lately. And Frasier responds by telling the caller a little bit about his own life. He says, 6 months ago, I was living in Boston. My wife had left me, which is very
Hey-o.
painful.
He stopped him in his tracks.
What?
Nick was
Yeah, my
Hey-O in
wife
Boston.
left me.
But it wasn't like the punchline didn't happen yet.
No, I was just representing our home city, Jay.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
Shouting
you
it
should have
out.
said it earlier, not when I said the next line.
I know, I had to unmute my microphone. It took longer than it should have.
Yeah,
Well,
Nick was
all
really
right.
excited about his ex-wife leaving.
I was like, yeah. I was like, oh, all right.
Yeah, divorce.
So he said, which was very painful. And then she came back to me, which was excruciating. And the way he delivered that, I thought was hilarious when he said that.
Yeah, that was great. But, okay, let me ask you this. Is it as funny if you don't know Lilith?
It's not. Well, I guess it's still funny, but it's way funnier.
No,
if
I
you
think
know
it's
the
funny because his
character.
delivery, because he got so serious when he said it. Like his face went like dark and cold, which was excruciating.
Kelsey Grammer's a really good actor. Like,
Yes.
fantastic, yeah.
Oh yeah, I'd like it to be said that even though we're making fun of the accent a little bit because it doesn't make sense for Seattle, Kelsey Grammer's great. There's no issue there. And Frasier Crane is an amazing character. In Cheers, he's so good in Cheers.
And then he continues to say, on top of that, my practice had grown stagnant. My social life consisted of hanging around at a bar night after night. I think that, by the way, was a great way to, that and mentioning Boston was a good way to nod
Shoehorn
Cheers
it in,
without overdoing it,
Like holy exposition dump, Batman.
Yeah, it's a lot of exposition, but it works.
But it's not like, too many like, get it? It's
No,
just, like,
it was the
subtle
perfect
cues.
way to do it.
Yeah.
I'm not complaining about it. It was pretty funny. I like that he got it all out of the way all at once.
Yeah.
Do you think when they got divorced, she was like, Frasier, I want a divorce? And he was like, Lilith, fair.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's probably exactly how it went.
To go back to what you said, I remember her on Cheers. She sucked.
It's funny, I just watched Jumanji yesterday. I forgot she was in that.
As Lilith. She's just yelling at a rhinoceros for 2 minutes. Like, it's a weird scene they put in here.
So he continues to tell him that he knew he had to make change and eventually ended his marriage for good and moved back to his hometown of Seattle. And then he said, move, change, do something. If it's a mistake, do something else. And as I'm watching, I'm like, that's legitimate, great advice. To the point where like, I want to like write that down and put it on a Post-it note or something.
Oh, next week's episode, the video's gonna look a little different because Jay's gonna be in like an empty apartment somewhere and he's like, I fucking moved to Kansas City. I don't know. It really took.
Damn that Kelsey Grammer.
And Jay's gonna move to Seattle and be like, why does everyone not sound like I thought they would here?
He just subtly has an accent.
Next episode. Welcome everyone to S1E1. I don't know why.
That
You'd
Julia
be
Child?
Childs, but that's where I'm going with.
Bon appetit.
Follow us on Instagram.
So he closes by asking the caller, can you do that for me? In reply to his, make change. And we find out that they went off air a while ago and we've moved on to Chopper Dave's Rush Hour Roundup. So after that, he asks his producer, Roz, the show went well other than that though, right? And she's kind of ducking the question and saying, oh, your brother called, by the way. And he's like, I can handle criticism. What you're doing right now is avoidance. And she finally rifles off like this list of everything he did wrong throughout the episode. And I'm not going to get into everything, but one of the last ones that she closed with was about how he kept referring to Jerry with the identity crisis as Jeff.
That
got
was
me.
good. Yeah.
He also said the call signs of the radio station in the wrong order. He didn't say WNBC.
NBC. Pig Vomit would have been so mad at him for that.
I like that the conversation kind of goes full circle with the whole avoidance comment earlier because as soon as she tells him everything he did wrong, he just goes, "Oh, so you said my brother called," and he runs off.
This also goes to show, again, we've done news radio. We have done WKRP in Cincinnati. We have done Frasier. I want to say there's one more. There is something about a radio station that makes such a good sitcom environment.
But like, you can't do it anymore because people
Yeah.
like, it's like, I don't think it's as relatable. Radio still exists, but I don't think it's as used the way it was once.
It could be podcasting.
Yeah, I was going to say, it could be
Yeah.
podcasting.
I think in this environment, though, it still works because one of the only really profit making and well listened to radio segments left is still talk radio. Like that's still as popular now as it ever was, and people
And
even
sports
pay.
radio.
Yeah, I mean, look how much money people pay for XM and stuff just to get Howard Stern. And that show now is literally just him talking to musicians. It's not even what Howard Stern used to be.
I know, it used to be like, "Hey, let me throw baloney at your ass," and I was like, "So what were you thinking when you wrote
So
Everlong?"
Much baloney throwing. Why was
Yeah.
that his gimmick for so long?
Everyone's got different kinks.
Look, we're not here to kink shame. I'm just saying it seems I've seen way too many girls in thongs get baloney thrown at their butts at like 1 a.m. on E when we were in high school. It's like, is this what the whole TV show is? Like, what is happening?
The following scene, again, we have a black title screen, says The Brother. And we have Frasier, who's at this cafe, and he's reading the menu while his brother Niles is standing next to him, recounting the story between him and the gardener. And he says, "Yoshi, I do not want a Zen garden in my backyard. If I want to rake gravel every 10 minutes to maintain my inner harmony, I'll move to Yokohama." I feel like that alone tells you so much about Niles. Like, I felt like he introduces his character very strong. His personality is very profound.
This is also a very much my classic Janine Garofalo, but like, we're getting coffee. It's the 90s. Can we have 2 cafe lattes? Like, at this same time, there is the entire Seinfeld episode about cafe latte. Like, specifically cafe latte.
I think here, though, right, you need to have a place where Frasier can meet up with his brother outside of his house.
That's
And
not
you
a bar.
can't throw him at a bar because you're not trying to put him in the Cheers environment again.
He's at this new bar called Steers.
Yeah.
Think of a country and western bar called Steers. It's, Niles, get off the bowl. Get off the bowl. I'm trying to talk to you, Niles.
I got a mental picture.
It's funny too when you think this came out a year before Friends did.
Yeah.
So they kind of pioneered the coffee shop thing.
If this continues on.
What?
Seattle is very
That's where Starbucks started,
Yes.
right?
also that Seattle is very known for like coffee shops.
That's true. I didn't
Sure.
even think of that. Yeah.
And that whole story that Niles is telling, Frasier's not paying attention like at all the whole time. And when he gets called out on it, he says to his brother, like, you're a psychiatrist. You know what it's like to listen to people going on endlessly about their mundane lives. So both of them are psychiatrists.
Is anybody here
A psychiatrist?
in or ever been
No.
in therapy?
No.
When I was
Negative.
very young, like single digit age, I used to have to go to like behavioral class because I was
Because
not
you were
behaving well.
because you were you, basically, is what you're trying to say.
We need to find who that psychiatrist was and give them a terrible Yelp review.
They need to lose their license.
On an upside, I guess that was long enough now that they've either succumbed to things that their profession couldn't help them with or quit.
I
Or
was
retired.
so young. I used to have to go. My dad would have to take me because I was just, an ill-behaved child. The only thing I remember about this whole thing was it was like a group class with other shitty kids, and there was a technique called stop, and it was stop, think, go over your options, and then praise yourself when you're done. And I don't know, like 30 years later, I still remember that, and that's all I.
And
took
all
out of
you
the
took
class.
from that was praise yourself.
Yeah.
Well, you got to go with the main event at the end. So yeah, I felt like that was the most important part.
I've known you for 36 years, and some of this makes a lot more sense suddenly.
I know. How have I never
Yeah,
heard
right?
that before?
I was really young. It was like a once a week, I think, thing. I don't remember it that clearly because it was like really, really young.
Cut to 4th grade where Jane never got to go to recess. And they're just like, well, it didn't work.
I think we told that story on here.
Yeah.
Jason.
It is funny though, we've all literally known each other since we were in single digit age,
It is wild, yeah.
which is
Yeah.
wild in itself, but also that none of us knew that story seems kind of crazy.
Yeah, I guess, I don't know. I just never think about it. It wasn't like it didn't go on for that long.
Anyway, therapy is good and important. We're not shaming it or anything, but I will say I go to it and sometimes I'm just like, how's your week? Or like, It was okay. Like, I don't know. Like, it's never like me emptying out my soul. It's always just me being like,
Well, you'll get out of it what you put in, right? So, like,
Oh.
as forthcoming as you want to be, that's what you'll get in return.
All it is just a person that you can talk to and
Yeah, venting.
basically throw everything in the
Yeah.
kitchen sink at. That
Tell
makes
me
you
about
feel
your
better.
mother.
I will say that when I first started going last year, they were just like, yeah, that makes sense. Here, take a bunch of pills. And then for like 3 months, I was just like, I was like, I don't think these are working. This is bad. What are you people doing? It's like, I've been chewing my tongue for 3 weeks. So it's also important to like make sure you find a doctor who like works for you.
Yes, that's a big piece of it. So they put in their order and then both find a table to sit down at. Not before Niles thoroughly wipes the chair down with like a handkerchief he had in
Yeah,
his
like
pocket.
COVID style, which I thought was strange.
But it's
What I
not
thought was-
disposable. He puts
What
it
I
in his
thought
pocket.
was strange was he just puts it in his pocket after.
Yeah.
So it's touching
Yeah.
the same amount of skin at his butt with pants on would have touched the chair. So what's he really protecting?
I've seen the episode of Penn and Teller's Bullshit where they test the theory of how dirty a toilet seat actually is. And it's surprisingly not as dirty as you think it would be, compared to just like how dirty a human's anatomy is. So it seems weird to use a handkerchief to wipe off a chair at a coffee shop, like, and think it would do anything.
And nowadays, your phone is actually probably the dirtiest thing that you carry around with.
Well, the inside of my phone for sure.
It's just full of girls, brunette girls in glasses trying to run away.
Whoa, that's a totally different lane. What am I recording myself chasing people? Get back here.
I don't question it anymore, man.
Now you got to.
So, So, the two brothers are sitting at the table now, and they're having some light small talk. And Frasier tells his brother how much he enjoys his new life and the solitude, but does mention like how he misses his son and how he's playing soccer now. Like, oh, chip off the old block. Brother's like, you hated sports. He's like, so does he.
I actually forgot he had a son.
Yeah.
Me too.
Does anybody know if his son ever pops up on the show? Or was this a one-time mention and then he's just
Again,
Well, they just
I
trying
don't
to
know
explain
enough.
him
Yeah.
moving away, and I don't remember that. Maybe at some point, because it's 11 seasons, but we do have an opportunity now. I guess there's no proper way to bring it up unless it was at the end. They are going to bring back Frasier,
Yeah.
so I don't know if it's a
without the
continuation.
dad, it's not going to work.
Well, it's a new.
I do
he's
like
back
though that
in
it's going to be
Boston.
in Boston.
Yeah, it's like none of the cast is returning, so it's a new Frasier. I don't
thought
even
it
know
was
if it's.
him-
Gonna
I
be.
thought it was him and Niles.
No Niles, to my
Yeah,
understanding.
no
Really?
Niles.
He's
Yeah.
out too. Yeah, it's literally just Frasier coming back.
Oh, lame.
What about
In-
Eddie?
In Boston, Eddie didn't even survive 11 seasons.
Oh,
There's a
no.
few different Eddies. Eddie's. It's not the first Eddie. Just
We'll
like there
talk
was
about
Eddie
Eddie
versus
when we get to
Rascals.
He did receive the most fan mail.
So yeah,
That
we'll
makes
talk about
sense.
we'll
He
talk
was a
about
good
Eddie
boy.
in a little bit. But so the conversation moves on to Niles telling Frasier that the other day one of their father's friends from the police force went over to see him, and when he got to his house, he saw him on the bathroom floor, and that he doesn't think he should be living on his own anymore, and the only option that he can think about is putting him in a home. And he pulls out all these brochures. He says, Frasier, you can't take him. You're just starting your new life here and getting settled in, and I certainly can't take him either. And Frasier's like, yeah, of course. Why? And he's like, well, he doesn't get along with Maris, who's his wife. And Frasier's like, yeah, well, nobody does. Like, I thought you liked my Maris. I hated that he said my Maris in that moment, by the way.
Yeah, that's a weird way to put it.
But it tracks,
I've never,
though.
Yeah,
never
and
used
he-
that, but it works for him too. Yeah,
Yeah,
probably
for
like
him,
a Seattle lingo that we don't know about.
No, I think it's
my
like,
Maris though. Like there's a lot of other Marises around.
Yeah. But Frasier's like, no, I like her like from a distance. The way you like the sun. Maris is like the sun, except without the warmth.
That got me. That
Yeah,
got
that's a
me.
good little line.
And then Niles pulls out that brochure and he's like, Golden Acres. We care so that you don't have to. And he admits that wasn't actually written, but it might as well be there. So Frasier cracks down. He's like, you know what? I'll take him. And as soon as he agrees to bring their father in, that's when the waitress shows up with their lattes and asks if they want anything to eat. Frasier says, suddenly my appetite is gone, and Niles decides to order himself a large piece of cheesecake, which I love cheesecake.
Is it?
So do I.
I feel like it's a weird, like, middle of the day thing, though, right? That's a post dinner, and that's it. Like,
Oh,
we
wait,
don't know what time it is. This could be right after work, and he worked.
But then it's pre-dinner. That's
yeah,
weird,
he
too.
hasn't eaten dinner yet.
Listen,
Listen,
any
I
time
can
of the
eat
day is
cake any time,
any time of the day is a good time for cheesecake.
I love cheesecake. I think it was weird that
I would always get something smaller though. Like if it was mid-snack and you're like the Starbucks or something, you'd be like, "Ooh, that chocolate chip cookie looks good." But that's not going to like ruin your whole food experience the rest of the day.
Just because your
It's also-
stomach's bad.
it's not a restaurant, it's a cafe, so they were supposed to, in theory, order that while they got their coffees, right?
It seems weird to have a waitress come
Yeah.
over with the coffee. It's the upsell, man. It's all about sales. It's all about the upsell.
So now we get to another title screen that says The Father. And the scene starts with Frasier playing the piano in his condo. I looked it up. I guess Frasier plays a little bit of piano. He admittedly not super well. So that scene, probably not really him. But David Hyde Pierce, who plays Niles, apparently is like very good at piano.
Honestly, of course he is.
I believe it.
He
yeah.
just looks like
Yeah.
a guy who knows how to play piano.
No, and I love that he's come back for. I don't know if you guys are fans of Wet Hot American Summer. He's amazing in Wet Hot American Summer, but he also came back for all the
I
sequels.
like the first one. I didn't like this. I didn't like the second.
I like
one.
the sequel stuff. The sequels also had what's his face playing Ronald Reagan, and then the fear of Skylab falling on them, which I thought was such a great dumb plot point.
I thought him playing piano in the scene was a little unnecessary, but I guess it's fine. It was
No,
it
it
seemed a little
works
out of
for his,
nowhere.
it works for his character though. Like
I suppose.
Yeah, like it'd be weird if he was playing like an AC/DC song guitar. You know what I mean? Like, but
I
him
could-
playing classical piano makes sense.
yeah,
Listen,
I
at
could
least
see him.
it's not one of those sitcoms where there's a musical instrument in the apartment and no one ever plays it ever. At least.
Yeah, true.
Do you know what
Sure.
I think would have been a better joke though? In our classic, we always rewrite the scenes. I think it should have been him playing piano and the music playing in the background. And when the door, well, when the door knocked and he got up, the music was still playing, and he went and like turned off a record because it's like such a
Yeah.
Well, that
pretentious
would've
thing
been
that he's
good,
pretending
yeah.
to play along with the piano,
That
and
is-
then you
that
never have to worry
would've
about him
been good.
playing again, right? Like it's a good way to make a joke. That's what I would have written.
That's good writing, my friend.
In any event,
Thank you.
he stops playing when the doorbell rings. And in walks Niles with their father, Martin, played by the late, great John Mahoney, uncle of famed wrestler Balls Mahoney. And Frasier welcomes them in, and he tells his dad, "Oh, you look great." And he's like, "Don't BS me. I spent my Monday on the bathroom floor. You can still see tile marks on my face."
I love that they end up explaining why he was in the bathroom floor, because before you meet him, and John Mahoney's not that old. At this point, he was in action movies. Like this year, I think the exact year this came out, he did Striking Distance, the Bruce Willis cop movie, and he did In the Line of Fire with Clint Eastwood. So he's like an older guy in those, but he's not like an old man. So when he pops in, you're like, wait, that's who you're getting to play the guy who's on the floor?
Well, yeah, the theory isn't that he's like too old mentally. It's that his hip's bad. So he just physically can't get around.
I like how they later on tell you the story as to why.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, because otherwise you'd be like, wait, this guy's way too young and vital
Exactly.
to be
Right.
in that
Right, yeah.
It does
position.
make sense down the line, but I also love the stark difference between the father and the two sons.
Yeah.
I imagine at
I
some
wonder
point,
if
not in this
that's
pilot,
explained.
but
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think you were going to say the same thing as me, but I wonder if that's ever explained why they're so different from him.
I think it's explained that it's the mother is much more uptight. But
Yeah,
I
there's
wonder if we ever
actually a
meet the
scene-
mother.
The close of the scene before when they're at the cafe, I didn't bring it up, but
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
that's right.
actually. No, it's later on.
Yeah, it
We'll
is.
bring it up when we get to it. The mother's mentioned later. Sorry about that.
Also,
So
we haven't
Frasier-
talked about this yet. We talked about John Mahoney coming in, but we haven't talked about them coming into this fucking mega apartment.
Amazing condo.
This is insane. I don't know how well Frasier was doing
incredible.
in Boston.
I mean, he was a psychiatrist at the top of his field. Like,
Yeah.
he's got doctor money. Like, this
Sure.
isn't unreasonable for him to live there. I don't think, anyways.
But like, they look out the window and the Space Needle is like closer than my neighbor's house. Like, it's
Yeah.
an amazing apartment.
But specifically this scene, when he goes from the piano to the door, they pan over and you really see how like beautiful that apartment is. Like, I was like, wow.
I don't remember that apartment looking like that as a kid.
Actually, me
I do
neither.
remember that. Yeah, I like whatever backdrop they used for the outside of his window was actually really good. You see shows kind of lack quality on the backdrops a lot, and it's like very obviously just a board in the back. This one looked really good for the time, anyways.
If you're gonna go
Yeah.
all windows like that, you have to put a little bit of detail there.
Yeah, I guess if the window's that big, you have to.
Funny enough, I had read that after this episode, they added like curtains to the windows, so you only see the actual Space Needle like in this episode.
Interesting.
Maybe it's a green screen. That's why it's so nice.
No, it wouldn't look that good back then.
I don't know if it would that. Yeah, that's pretty early.
Just to get it out of the way now, though, because I just glanced at my notes and forgot about it. Joe, do you know the 9/11 connection to this?
I do not.
The writer-producer David Engel, him and his wife were on the first plane that hit the buildings.
Fuck, that's awful.
Yeah.
What
I'm
the-
really surprised you didn't know that, actually. That's
Yeah, I'm
crazy.
surprised too. I thought that would have been in like Only Plane in the Sky or like one of the million 9/11 books I've read, but
So on that high note, Frasier has him take a seat on the couch and continues to make the most of the situation, telling him, I loaded the fridge with your favorite beer, Ballantine's, which is very obscure, weird beer to pick.
it's an odd beer to pick. It's surprising that it's not like Meisterbrow or like I don't know, into like a smaller, shittier.
Yeah,
but, like,
I did a
old
little
style.
homework on that. That's owned. It's now. It was independently owned for a million years. It was like the third oldest brewery, but now it's owned by PBR. But it's not originally from Seattle. It's not currently from Seattle, so it's kind of like a weird pick. I know it has a little bit of military ties, so I thought maybe that's where they were going with it.
I've had it a few times. It's one of those beers that used to only come in like tall boy 4-packs. When before like fancy beers came in 4-packs, it was a weird thing. We were like, why is this beer? It was like that and Boddington's would come in like 4-pack of tall boys only.
I feel
He
like
also,
Frasier, despite coming from Cheers, I feel like the only thing he should have in his like apartment is like Chianti and like other like stuff that proper people would drink, not like
super fancy
beer.
drinks.
Well, he also, he's setting it up for his dad, so that's why he said he also has some hot links and coleslaw.
That's true.
And a Charles Bronson movie on
Yes.
VHS.
I immediately thought of you when
Yeah,
I
because-
smiled so hard.
The idea, like, imagine if Joe's coming over, you'd be like, oh, what should I do? I'll buy some cheap beer and rent a Charles Bronson movie.
But again, that would be a
Some
very
sausage.
specific cheap beer.
And how are you on hot links?
I mean, I'm pro hot link. I mean, so if you were like Joe, I know you were coming over, so we rented, Death Wish 3. We got you some High Life and some hot dogs. I would be so fucking happy.
Coleslaw? You coleslaw man?
I'm not a coleslaw man.
I hate coleslaw.
I love coleslaw.
I like coleslaw.
It's got to be on the mayo-y side. I don't like the vinegary coleslaw.
Oh, I like
Same.
the vinegary.
And
Like
it's gonna be cold.
R.I.P. the Ranch. The Ranch in Revere here had a really good coleslaw.
Was it really good though, or were you just always eating it at 2 a.m. when you were wasted?
No, towards the end there, I ate that sober more than I ate it drunk.
Interesting.
The one time I ate it sober, I got really sick.
The alcohol protected you.
Yeah, it gives you like a barrier.
Nick and I went there on the last week. That they
The
were
last
around.
day. Wasn't
Oh,
it the
it was
last day that they were
wasn't it?
open?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys are making our Revere listeners really excited, but I think the rest of the world.
The rest of the country doesn't even know about the roast beefs we eat. So.
Yeah, people listen like, I hope
A
they keep going on about coleslaw.
Suburban restaurant that closed in Boston. Like no one gives a shit.
So Martin says, hey, we all know why I'm here. Your old man can't be left alone for 10 minutes without falling on his ass. And Frasier got stuck with me. Isn't that right? And then they're both like, no. And like, I don't know. When they cut to the two of them both kind of like laughing and denying, like, I found that very funny.
Yep.
But he says, I want you here. I want us to give it a chance to get reacquainted. He's like, that would imply that we were acquainted to begin with. And Frasier asks his dad what he thinks of the place and starts talking about all those different pieces of furniture he has. And we'd already said the place was just location and size, beautiful apartment, but then all the pieces there were like very meticulously picked and all fancy art, and that everything was very, specifically selected. And Martin's like, nothing here matches. And Fraser's like, yeah, it's a style called eclectic. And if you have really fine pieces of furniture, it doesn't really matter if they match. They just sort of go together. He's like, well, it's your money.
No, I didn't think. I don't have an eye for like design or anything, but I didn't think any of it didn't match.
Yeah, it all flowed to me.
Yeah, it all flowed.
Yeah, I mean, it's all. I mean, I think it's one of those, like, if you really know what you're talking about as far as like high-end furniture goes, maybe it doesn't, but to us, it works fine.
I think for his dad being just such a meat and potatoes guy, he's like, why don't you have a sofa love seat combo that look exactly alike with a regular table and a TV?
Well, most regular people have a platform with a baby grand piano on it. I mean, that's how most apartments are laid out these days.
Right. They come from different worlds entirely. So anything that Frasier likes, subsequently Martin probably is not going to even understand.
Now that we've been introed to the dad, did you guys know that him and I always forget the guy who plays Niles' real name, David Hyde Pierce. You know, they were the first and only options for those cast members. There was no other auditions or anything like that. And then when they decided on John Mahoney for Martin, Kelsey Grammer called him and asked him if he would be his dad.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah,
That's funny.
So no sooner do they have that conversation about all the furniture, the doorbell rings, and it's someone delivering Martin's beat-up old armchair. And Frasier obviously is not okay with this at all and says it doesn't go with anything. And Martin's like, yeah, I know, it's eclectic. So I thought that was really
saw
good.
that one coming. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it's smart.
love that.
It's just smart comedy writing, like, all the stories come full circle. It works.
Also, the guy that delivers that chair is also the guy who removes the chair in the last episode of the series.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, they brought him back just for that.
I love that guy gets the call and he's like, I've been waiting for this for 10 years.
But it was strange because when he came in and first sat on the couch, I was like, isn't he always in an armchair? Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And then it got delivered a little while later. I was like, okay.
Yeah, I did the same thing.
You think he
So-
would lean on his son who's got a lot of money to buy a nicer armchair?
But he doesn't want a nicer armchair. He wants his chair, his
Yeah.
comfortable chair.
Right, it's the Archie Bunker theory, right? It's his chair.
Do you guys have a chair?
Are you asking us if we sit down when we're home?
I sleep standing up like the Coneheads, personally. That's just how I do everything.
But no, I don't have like a specific spot I need to sit in. No, it doesn't.
Okay.
It's not a thing for
That
me.
was more or less. Do you guys have like a
Yeah.
specific armchair or anything
No.
like that, like a lazy boy or anything, or is that just a TV trope?
I don't
think
think
it's
it's
a
a
TV
Corner
trope,
of my
but
couch.
like I have the couch that I hang out in when I'm in this room watching television, and I don't even sit in the same spot of the couch from time to time.
However, if I had a lazy boy, I think I would sit in it all the time.
Me too. I really.
Yeah, if I
love
had a
that.
chair
don't
like
have
that, I'd
one.
certainly use it.
So now it says he has to run because he has to run to this dysfunctional family seminar that he's late to. But right before he exits, he asks his dad if he told Frasier about Eddie yet. And Frasier's like, Dad, no, not Eddie. Martin's like, he's my best friend. He's like, but he's weird and he gives me the creeps. All he does is stare at me and tells him that this is where he has to put his foot down and Eddie's not going to be moving in here. And then we flash to a new screen that says Eddie. Now, before we even get into it, it's tough because I think I know the show,
Yeah.
but I felt the setup. They're avoiding telling you what's about to happen, but I think it's obvious even if you don't know.
Yeah, if you didn't know about the dog,
Yeah.
I would assume it would be like Topsy, who's like Cotton Hill's best friend. Like, he's just like the weird old guy who...
Arr.
I'm surprised Frasier doesn't just lie and say, like, the building, there's no dogs allowed, or something like that.
That's probably
Yeah.
a smarter move, yeah. I mean,
Well, you see, when you live in condos, it's your house. You can have them, so it's not even like you can pull that. I don't think Frasier is renting that.
Probably not. I assumed it was a condo. But yeah, we cut to later that night and the lights are off. Martin's in his chair, eating the hot links and watching the Charles Bronson movie. And the camera pans over to the couch. And you see like Frasier looking very uncomfortable. As the camera continues to shift over, you just see that Jack Russell, who's Eddie, who's just like standing up, just staring straight at Frasier the whole time. And,
I love a good trained pup.
yeah.
I was
Yeah.
going to say, what a well-trained dog. Doesn't budge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a Jack
As-
Russell and she's the devil.
They're like energy filled pups.
Super Phil. I mean, and I have a miniature Jack Russell who's more like Milo from The Mask, the good one.
Oh, like not the keys, not the cheese Milo, the keys.
Yes, yes.
Oh, not the Cher movie?
No.
Because you said the good one. I thought you meant the Cher movie.
No, I said the good one.
Well, Rocky Dennis does get a pet dog, gets a dog as a gift in the movie Mask, the good one as well.
That's why I thought that's what he was talking about.
Yeah. And that poor dog's face. Oh boy.
You can see like smoke coming out of Gordo's ears as we talk about 2 movies that he hasn't watched.
I've seen The Mask.
All right.
Have you seen The Good Mask?
The Jim Carrey mask? Yes.
The Jim
No,
Carrey
The Good
is
Mask with Cher.
So I didn't even know that that's what that movie was called. I've seen, like...
I was going to say, Gordo's a meme guy, so he's seen pictures from that movie.
Yes, I have.
Yeah.
I've seen
definitely
the
sent
memes.
multiple mask memes into our group chat before.
I've seen the guy's face. Like, that is a familiar face, like, from my childhood. But,
Jim
like,
Carrey?
No, the mask.
Smoking.
Whoever the mask is.
Eric Stoltz, Pet Detective.
Either way, I know that face. I don't even know what we were talking about.
Top Gun.
So now in the next scene, Frasier meets with Niles at that same cafe they were at before. And Frasier's losing it. He can't handle having his dad stay with him. And he asks his brother if he has those pamphlets still for the nursing homes. And he says he doesn't have his life anymore. This week he's already had to give up tickets for the theater and the symphony. Then Niles reminds him about the opera on Friday, and Frasier hands him the tickets. So I assume Niles is the benefit of all these things that Frasier's not going to. Niles says that him and Maris were discussing it, and they agree that they should do more to help out with the situation. And Frasier's like, oh, you're going to be taking him in? He's like, oh, God, no. They are going to pay for him to have a home care worker. Someone who can like cook and clean and help the dad out with his physical therapy. And Frasier says, Niles, I can't thank you enough. I have an overwhelming urge to hug you. And that's when Niles goes, remember what Mom always said, a handshake is as good as a hug. So we brought it up earlier. It's very clear they are much more like Mom than Dad.
Yeah, she's.
Oh,
yeah.
You guys ever been to an opera before?
No, I've been to
and
the
I don't
symphony.
intend
though.
to.
No, I don't believe I have.
think I have. I can't. It doesn't stand out.
I've been to an opera house before, but not for an opera.
Yeah.
I've watched the Looney Tunes cartoon with the opera one with kill the rabbit, kill the rabbit.
I mean, to be
kill
fair,
the
that is-
rabbit.
Just as
And then the
good.
entire subplot of the movie Dirty Work is about the opera. Was it Pagliacci?
And then there's a Dracula opera in Forgetting Sarah Marshall.
What movie is that?
It's a classic. And yeah, so we
Is Cher in that one?
What
oh
about
God, no.
What about Dirty Work when they ruin his opera at the end?
That's what I was saying.
You
Yeah.
brought that one up. The whole like at home care, that's I guess like I was gonna say does anyone know anyone who's had that, but that's like a weird avenue to go down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I was going to say, if you guys had to get
Yeah, I know,
home
but I
health
think
care,
but that's obviously like not cheap. I mean, you figure they both
no,
are doing
yeah.
well.
no.
So that's is it assumed though where she's there to help cook and clean? Does Frasier benefit from that too? Like, is he getting? It's not just food for
I
Martin,
mean, if
right?
the house is getting cleaned, yeah.
When they argue about it later, they mention that she would only be there when Frasier wasn't. So,
Yeah, so
in
he doesn't have to
theory, no.
worry.
I mean, leftovers, yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. But I mean,
if
as
the
far
house
as
is
like
clean,
doing
that's
his
a benefit.
laundry, yeah.
Sneak some t-shirts into the pile.
Kind
So
of
we,
surprising he doesn't already have like a housekeeper.
He's new. He's just getting there. He's just getting settled in. He looks like such a clean freak that I don't think it was going to be an issue.
Yeah.
But we cut to later, and now Frasier and Martin are home, and Frasier's just seeing someone out of the door who he just interviewed for the job. And he says, I have never been more impressed with a human being in my life. And he shuts the door, and then he looks at his dad and goes, now what was wrong with that one? And he goes, she was casing the joint. Like, casing the joint? She spent 2 years with Mother Teresa. Well, if I were Mother Teresa, I'd check my jewelry box.
This one got a nice laugh.
Listen, I trust Martin because he was a cop. He would
That's true.
know.
I mean,
And Mother Teresa probably too trusting.
and when asked for a comment from Mother Teresa, she said,
Come on.
For those of you who can't see us, Joe stood still. and acted dead.
I did dead joke.
So now they're about to interview their last applicant who's coming to the house. And in walks Daphne Moon, who when Frasier first opened the door had her hand in her bra. Joe, you started the episode saying, like, oh, caught me with my hand in the biscuit tin. Not a term I've heard before, but
It's just their version of the cookie jar.
Add that to the Rolodex.
Yeah, English cookie jar.
yeah.
Because a cookie in England is a biscuit.
Yeah, like the Geico commercial when he brings them biscuits.
which is why the
In England, they're called limp cookie.
fuck you, God, you paid me to. I couldn't figure out how to word it properly.
Now, Gordo, do you want to do your Fred Durst impression?
We're all right.
If this is the first time you've heard us, you're very confused. But go back and listen to all our other episodes. They're there. So Frasier walks her in and introduces her to Martin. And she sees the dog on the couch and asks, "Oh, and who might this be?" And Frasier's way of saying it, he was just like, "That is Eddie." He hates that
His
dog
disdain
so
for
much.
the dog on his face is so
I
good.
love his disdain gets deep too. His voice gets deeper, which makes
It's
it way
super
funnier.
dark. And Martin's like, "I call him Eddie Spaghetti." "Oh, he likes pasta?" "No, he has worms."
I laughed stupidly hard at this, and I'm usually not. That's usually not my type of humor, but that joke fucking landed.
Do you think deep down he hates Eddie so much because the dad gives Eddie the love that he doesn't get and never got?
That's
I
a
mean,
very deep.
Frasier as a psychiatrist should understand that, but maybe that could be it. And
Yeah. Ferg, Dr. Ferg. You should have your own radio show.
I am Dr. Ferg. Your dog has worms.
only if Ferg brings the guy from Bum Fights. To those of you
Literally
listening,
a top 10 moment in United States television history.
If you guys are
Yeah.
listening, right, at some point in your day, go to YouTube and Google, not Google, on YouTube search Dr. Phil Bum Fights, and it's the guy who created the VHS series Bum Fights. Shows up to Dr. Phil dressed as Dr. Phil and shaved his head into the skullet. It is one of the funniest things on the internet. I don't know if it was
Dr.
popular.
Phil gets so mad, he gets rattled and instantly throws him off.
Yeah, I
without
wasn't
saying a
prepared
word.
for it.
He doesn't even say anything. He's just sitting there, and the
Yeah, he's like,
camera
"You know what?"
pans to him.
He's like,
Oh,
yeah,
both bad guys,
outta
though,
here.
right? Like, that guy
Yeah,
Yeah,
was...
they're both terrible human
They're both
beings.
terrible people.
Yeah. Oh, you mean the creator of Bum Fights is not a saint?
Oh, God. But Dr. Phil, I'm saying, is also equally bad, right? He's
Oh,
another
yeah.
charlatan.
But I think the
for
guy from
sure.
Bum Fights was basically like, "Hey, we do the same thing. I just admit it, and you're exploiting people too."
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that he was calling him out for also being an exploitive dickhead, but that doesn't make him not
Yeah, two
exploitive
wrongs don't make it
dickhead.
right. But as Daphne sits down, she compliments Martin's chair and takes this light jab at the furniture Frasier has, which Martin is already starting to warm up to her just by her saying that. And then Frasier asks where she's from. She's like, "Oh, well, originally I'm from Manchester, England." He's like, "Oh, really? Did you hear that, Dad?" Like, "I'm 3 feet away. There's nothing wrong with my hearing."
It's funny, I always thought she was Irish back in the day.
Her
I didn't
accent
know
is-
accents very well.
Yeah, well, her accent is, I don't know. It's not quite where I would think it would be for an English accent. It does feel like there's a little something else in there.
Well, Manchester is a very specific accent, too, though.
Yeah,
Maybe that's
true. Maybe Frasier's British accent threw me off.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just
Having
heard
a-
another guy speaking in an English accent the whole time.
Yeah.
Oh, good lord.
And as they're continuing to talk, she stops him mid-conversation and asks Martin, "Are you a police officer?" And admits that she's a bit psychic. He's like, "Just little things. I can't pick the lottery or anything. Otherwise, I wouldn't be with the likes of you guys." And again, it cuts to Martin, and you can see him he likes this girl. Not in that way, but he's like, "She's on my level."
She's
the
normal
will
and
they,
real.
won't they?
No.
Yeah, her and Eddie.
She ends up with Niles, if I remember correctly.
Yes, down the road. Martin just spends, lately his time with his children, who he has not a lick of anything in common with. So I think just being around any normal human being, or just someone who's a little less proper, is breath of fresh air.
And you get the idea that she would have a beer and watch a movie with him. She
Exactly.
seems normal and down to earth.
Then she goes to Frasier and goes, "Wait, I'm getting another one. Are you a florist?" And when he says no, he's like, "Oh, these things come and go. Usually it's strongest when I'm, having my time of the month." Frasier at this point is already kind of heading towards the door to all right, enough of you. And she turns to Eddie and goes, "And you're a dog, aren't you?" And she's laughing to herself. And I don't know, she seems so charming there because she was so tickled by her own comment.
I mean, she interjects a real good, different level of comedy into the show. When you start introducing in a pilot all these different characters, you realize that, this is an ingredient into the soup that you very much need in this show. Because otherwise it would be 2 very proper guys and 1 angry, not proper guy. And it's just, that balance doesn't work.
And I think
she's the female and the nutty bits of
Yeah,
the
and I think the show does a good job too, where we're basically getting Frasier, Niles, the father, Daphne, and Roz, and that's it. And Roz is even a smaller role in this episode, but
Yeah, she's very minimal in this one.
you're not overloading us. You're letting us see every character. You're getting a good vibe for who everyone is. Frasier's like, I think we heard everything we need. And we'll get back to you. And he starts to open the door. And Martin's like, wait, why wait? You got the job. Frasier's like, hold on, wait a minute. How about we talk this out first? And Daphne's like, all right, and sees herself to the bathroom so that they can have a moment alone. Or the loo. Frasier thinks she's a kook and he doesn't like her. And Martin says, well, you asked me to pick one and I did. And she's only going to be here when you're not here. So what's the difference anyways? And he's kind of like, he's right. I'm never going to have to see her. So
what is my problem?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was like, oh, I didn't think of that. So he's like, Daphne comes back out of the bathroom. He's like, you know what? You got the job. And she's like, oh, great. I'll move my things in tomorrow. And that's when we find out there's this big misunderstanding at the agency because she was told it was a live-in position and it was only supposed to be part-time. But Martin wants to try to work something out. Frasier's like, well, it's not going to work. And he says, we'll be in touch with you, if not by telephone, then by toaster, taking a jab at her abilities. And
I wonder if all the other ones had the wrong idea too. Like, if
apparently,
really
if that's what the agency
that was the word of
telling
the agency,
everybody, As soon as she leaves, the conversation takes a pretty serious turn for the most part. I mean, they toss a few jokes in, but overall, I thought this was like a really good, well-acted scene between the two. And mine
you kind of don't expect it, the heartfelt and seriousness of their back and forth here.
And without the need for like that slow music.
Yeah, it becomes like a Shakespearean drama. Like,
so
just got the Kelsey Grammar's holding a skull.
Yeah.
No, it's African erotica.
Oh, it's African erotic art. Which, when he says that, all I could think of in my head is when they cut to what's his face in The Shining. And he's at his apartment in Miami, and they do the slow pan back, and there's just the two naked lady oil paintings on his wall, or velvet paintings. I was like, now that's exactly what my head looks like. That's what I think his bathroom looks like. Scatman Crothers, thank you.
So Martin tells Frasier, why doesn't he just move into the room across from mine? And Frasier's like, that's my study, the place where I read and I do my most profound thinking. And Martin's like, just use the can like the rest of us. You can adjust. And Frasier's like, I don't want to adjust. I've done enough adjusting. And he's like, I'm in a new city. I have a new job. I'm separating from my son, which is enough to drive me nuts. He's like, and now I have you and the dog living here. Hiring someone was meant to ease the burden, not add to it. And Martin's like, oh, you hear that, Eddie? We're a burden. And Frasier's like, you're twisting my words. Burden was meant in the most positive sense. He's like, oh, as in like, gee, what a lovely burden. Martin tells him, you're not the only one who got screwed here, 2 years ago, I'm sailing towards retirement, and some punk robbing a convenience store puts a bullet in my head. Next thing you know, I'm trading in my golf clubs for one of these, and he's shaking his cane. He's like, well, I had plans too, and this may come as a shock to you, sonny boy, but one of them wasn't living with you. And Frasier's like, I'm just trying to do the right thing here. I'm trying to be the good son. He's like, oh, don't worry, son. After I'm gone, you can live guilt-free knowing you've done right by your pop. He's like, you think that's what this is? About guilt? Isn't it? Of course it is. But that's not the point. I did it. I took you in. And I've got news for you. I wanted to do it because you're my father. And how do you repay me? Ever since you moved in, it's been a snide comment about this or a smart little put down about that. Well, I've done the best to make a home for you. And just once, it would be nice if you would just say thank you. One lousy thank you. And there's a really long pause. And it's
kind of uncomfortably long.
It was a good 6 or 7 seconds. I counted out the next time.
Yeah.
And then Martin finally says, come on, Eddie, it's past your dinner time, and just walks off. He doesn't say thank you. I'm reading it, word for word, but to watch that scene and how the two were performing back and forth, they were both so emotional in that. There's a point where Frasier almost cries when he's talking about,
yeah, it was really well done. Yeah.
You don't expect it to get that deep and dark so quick.
And they throw those little jokes in, when it came to, do it on the can and stuff like that, but they didn't get too yuck in it to splice it. And I think it was good that they let that scene be what it was.
You know what's funny? You know what I thought of during this scene? And it's interesting that you bring up that they kind of bookend the scene with jokes, but they allow the argument to happen as if it were a real argument. It reminded me of Everybody Loves Raymond, but Everybody Loves Raymond throws jokes in through the whole argument too, because Raymond has had this argument with his father. You know what I mean? Like I just want this from you argument. Like you probably a few dozen times because that show ran for so long. But there was always the jokes in. And to see the juxtaposition, this works so much better.
Yeah, I was immediately thinking of that scene in the very famous scene in Everybody Loves Raymond, where they're having the fight, and he's like, "Don't you talk about my mother that way?" He's like, "You do." He's like, "She's not my mother." Like they always find a way to.
There has to be that. Yeah,
there has to be the button on it. Yeah, which is funny, and it works well when Peter Boyle is yelling it. Right, like it does work in that show.
Yeah, it's not bad, but I just seeing it done this way, it adds another layer to the show, I guess, that makes it more interesting to see.
But is that because of, if we're going to do the comparison of like Everybody Loves Raymond to this, is that because the actors in this? Like, because Kelsey Grammer is a really good actor, or at least puts off.
No, I think that's more about writing than anything.
Okay.
Kind of Peter Boyle, who I think is a very funny actor, is also a very good actor too. Has a lot of serious roles,
Okay. So it's like perfect soup.
Sure. A lot of soup tonight. A lot of soup talking. Not much tossed salad or scrambled eggs, but a lot of soup.
I just talk soup.
Oh, I miss talk soup. It was on right before Howard Stern would throw baloney at women. And right before a trim spa, baby.
Go ahead.
She's fantastic. On my cold dead body. Sorry, I can't not say it. It's like resolving the melody for Andy Bernard. If I don't say it, I'll get a headache.
All right. Well, moving along. The next scene, we get another one of those black title screens that says Lupe Velez. We see the quarter outside Frasier's studio in the radio area, and he's running in the hallway, and he's rushes into the booth, and then he gets in the studio, puts his headphones on, and he goes, they've got to move the bathroom closer to the studio, and then Roz throws to him that they're going live, and he goes, "We'll be right back after these messages," and then they're off air again, and he's like, "Couldn't I put that on tape?"
That sucks.
Funny, yeah.
There's nothing worse than having to pee that badly and having to run back and forth to something.
All that for one line, that he could have easily pre-recorded, because then it goes right back to break.
That's when you just put on Freebird, live at the Fox Theater or something. It's 16 minutes, so you can go drop a deuce and come back.
So in the middle of this very serious psychiatrist program, they play a 17-minute version live of Freebird, and no one is expected to think that's a weird thing.
Right.
They must have been playing music, though, if he ran back. There wasn't just dead air.
Well, it was commercials.
Could have been
commercials. I think it was more commercials, yeah.
No, because he comes back saying, "We'll be right back." So it wouldn't have been coming back from commercials.
No, sometimes they have those, even on TV shows, they'll do that. Remember, sometimes on TV shows, you get a commercial too, and then they would have the title screen of the show and be like, "We'll be right back after these messages."
Maybe it was the traffic report that interrupted.
Oh, that's a good call, yeah. Or a break in the news, where they do the 2-minute news thing. News on the 5s.
In any event, he then starts to tell Roz about the situation with his father. And now he had this whole life planned out and what it was going to be like until all this happened. And Roz asked if he'd ever heard of Lupe Velez. And she was an actress in the 30s who, her career started to fall off, and she figured if she wouldn't be remembered for her movies, she'd be remembered by her death. And planned this whole elaborate suicide. She'd be dressed to the tens, and there'd be candles and flowers. But when she took all the pills, it didn't sit right with the enchilada combo that she had earlier, and then ended up being found dead headfirst into the toilet bowl. Her point being, even though things didn't go as planned, they worked out anyways. And Frasier didn't understand how that worked out for her, and Roz says, well, all she ever wanted was to be remembered. Are you ever going to forget that story?
A good Simpsons reference here. In the John Waters episode of The Simpsons, when they're driving around, he's like, that's the store where Lupe Velez bought the toilet she drowned herself in.
Simpsons did it.
Yeah, The Simpsons did it.
So I did look it up.
Kelsey Grammer on the show, and Cecil.
I looked it up, and it was, this story might just be urban legend. It is true that Lupe Velez was a real Mexican actress, and she did overdose intentionally on pills. But it's not totally clear if she was found. It said that she was found in her bed, so we don't know for sure if she was found head in her toilet.
So she shit in her bed?
We don't know if the enchilada part's true either. But
let's just go with that she had to throw up because she ran to the toilet and drowned in it.
Yeah.
But there's a million of these stories from that time too. There's the Mary Provost who died in her apartment. She's an actress and her dog ate her. because she was like in there for so long. And then is it W.C. Fields who there's a story where he like put a Pepsi bottle inside of a prostitute or sex worker and then she died. It's not a real story, but he had to go to trial for it. And I was like, I'm sorry, my little chicken. I don't know if that's W.C. Fields or not. To do an impression from fucking 100 years ago.
It's funny. Earlier I said how the black title screens were like very Pulp Fiction to me. This whole story you could have placed anywhere in the middle of Pulp Fiction.
This is very much a Tarantino-y story, yeah.
Could you not see them like sitting at the diner and like just having it where she's saying that to Vinny like while they're having their shake?
Yeah.
That $10 shake with no bourbon in it.
Yeah.
It's also very Clerks-like.
Yeah,
it is very Clerks
yeah,
too.
Those
yeah.
dialogue-heavy mid-90s movies.
Back when we had the attention span to watch people talk for 2 hours instead of it being like, I'm Ant-Man! Like, I don't give a fuck.
You're alone, though. You know, a lot of people like those movies.
Joe's
I
just
love
mad
Paul
he
Rudd.
has to
I don't
watch.
give a shit about any of those movies, yeah.
I know, you just said earlier how much you love Paul Rudd. And then
I love Paul Rudd. I
Ant-Man.
don't care about any of these modern superhero movies.
You could have picked like any other one that people don't care about.
I'm Aquaman!
There you
Is that
go.
Better?
There you go.
Does anybody like
hates
Aquaman?
I never saw Aquaman, but Jason Momoa seems like a cool dude.
Yeah,
Is he the guy
does.
who was married to Lisa Bonet? He does seem like
Yeah.
a cool guy.
Yeah.
And I love Lisa Bonet. Momoa's fine. The movie probably sucks.
I was gonna say Joe's just mad at Ant-Man because he has to watch
actually
like
like the
70
movie.
other like Marvel Universe movies to
Exactly.
understand.
I like comic books. I like superheroes. I feel left
You don't
out of
sound like
all
it.
these movies.
Joe, instead of watching Forgetting Sarah Marshall, you should go back 1 through 73 and do all of the Marvel Universe just to make Jay even more mad.
The only modern franchise I will do that for, have done that for, and will do it again is clearly Fast and Furious.
Ugh.
Gross.
Those movies are fucking great. Hobbs and Shaw's a gem. Fast X comes out soon.
I only
Bonus
saw
episode?
the first one.
Destroying your
The first
career.
one's legitimately probably the third worst one. It's not good. The movies change completely what they are from the first
The
one.
first one's the only good one.
That is incorrect.
I'm kind of with as a fan of the franchise. I do like the first one.
Look, I like the first one. I like it better than Tokyo Drift for sure. But the movies become what they become by like Fast 4 and 5.
We can't do this right now, by the way. I'm sorry. I like this. I like the movies too, but we cannot do this right
All right,
now.
yeah, let's move on.
So now Frasier puts his headphones back on and they're about to go live again. And the next caller is Martin, who's having a problem with his son. After Frasier greets the guy on the phone, you hear Frasier's dad say, I'm a first-time caller. And you see his eyes widen and he's like in shock. And he welcomes him to the show and asks how he can help him. I like the scene because they're talking out their situation over the air, but they never make it known that they know each other. They just play it the whole time like it's just caller and psychiatrist. And there's a moment towards the end where Martin says, I'm worried my son doesn't know that I really appreciate what he's doing for me. And Frasier replies with, why don't you tell him? And he again chokes up, like you think he's going to cry. Is again, like their balance of the seriousness and the jokes. They just, I think in their performances, they did it so well throughout this episode. The call ends with Martin saying, thank you, Dr. Crane. My pleasure, Martin. And then you hear, did you hear that I said thank you?
That yeah, I wasn't expecting that. I got a nice belly
Yeah.
laugh out of that
It was
one.
good because you get the joke. It's not over the top and it just cuts the serious out a little bit, without going too far.
Going back to our Everybody Love Raymond too, that's a more of a Raymond-y type thing. Like, I said thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really like the way that they did that. I don't know how you guys felt about that scene.
Without getting too far into it, I like the way they did every scene. Like it was just really well done.
I liked it, especially the end when he says the thank you part. But before that, I was a little confused because I was like, does he not know his son is on the thing? Like, I wasn't positive that he was doing it to reach out to him or if he was actually trying to call
100%,
a
'cause
psychologist
Martin-
on the thing. But when he says, did you hear that? I said thank you. I was like, okay, so he does definitely know. Okay.
That's funny. I've got a son named Dr. Frasier Crane.
That's a common name.
Does he sound like this as well? In Seattle, Washington.
So then after that phone call ends, we have one last caller who, as we found out before we recorded, is not a
Linda.
random actress. So Linda Hamilton, who played the lead in the Terminator movies,
Sarah Connor.
Sarah Connor, is the voice in this final call, which is like so random.
Real quick, Gordo, have you seen either Terminator 1 or 2?
I've seen Terminator 2.
Okay.
I have
Terminator
seen,
1 is amazing, by the way. You should see Terminator 1.
I'm pretty sure I've seen it with Ferg at some point. Ferg has made me watch tons of movies that I've just blocked out of my head, but
Terminator 2 is it's a rare, more people have seen that than the original. There's not many sequels that have that going for it.
yeah.
It's also
And Terminator
like
2 is
rare
like a
sequel.
cultural moment.
It's
Terminator
a
2
rare
had an
movie
awesome-
too. You don't need to see the first one to watch it, so that helps.
Yeah, I saw Terminator 2 way before I saw Terminator 1 because it was so present when it came out. Like there was the trading cards and the Guns N' Roses video was all over MTV.
Yeah, it was a big thing in culture at that time.
Also, the Guns N' Roses music video for that, where Arnold Schwarzenegger is at the Guns N' Roses concert, and at the end he goes to shoot Slash, and it says "Waste
It
of
was
bullets."
You Could Be Mine, right?
Yeah.
That was the song. Yeah.
I don't want to tangent too hard, but since Linda Hamilton's in the episode, and I don't know when we're going to talk about Terminator again, how do you guys feel about the Terminator story arc that John Connor sends someone into the past to get his mother pregnant to have him?
Yeah, it's a weird thing.
It's something you wouldn't
cannot-
want to have to do, but you would still have to do it.
But how do you get there the
can't
first
go
time?
into time travel plot holes.
Yeah,
We
no,
can't.
I mean, you can't, yeah.
You want this to be a 3-hour episode? Because I can go.
It's for the same reason you don't understand why Captain America isn't selfish.
He's selfish. He's super selfish.
No, fuck you.
No,
He's not
it's
selfish.
a different line.
Well, I will say, Daphne in this is in the Red Dwarf USA pilot reboot that never took off, which I would love to cover someday. But if you're looking for a great mindfuck, there is an episode in later Red Dwarf where they end up in a weird alternate time with JFK, and JFK has to assassinate himself. And that's like the whole sort of thing where it's like he knows he has to do it to
That's
himself.
kind of
and
fucked
Yeah.
up.
it's
yeah.
fucking amazing. It's a really
Yeah.
fun little story arc, but
Don't they do
worth
that
checking
with
out for any of you Red Dwarfies out there.
Don't they do that with Hitler too? Like there's like a whole Hitler story arc as well.
No, you're thinking of that other show we did.
Heil Honey, I'm
Danger
Home.
5.
Danger 5.
So anyways, the last caller is a girl named Claire, and she says, well, I'm a mess. And she says how 8 months ago, her and her boyfriend had broke up and she can't get over it. And how like the pain from that breakup's not going away. And she feels like she's in mourning. And Frasier says, Claire, you are in mourning. But you're not mourning over the loss of your boyfriend. You're mourning the loss of what you thought your life was going to be. And let it go. Things don't always work out the way you planned. That's not necessarily bad. Things have a way of working out anyways. And then he pauses, he goes, have you ever heard of Lupe Velez?
And then he winks at Roz too as he's saying this, like, which I thought was cool.
I think this show does a really good job of going
they
full
had to
circle
have
with
had
stories.
Yeah, they had to have had a consultant that was a psychiatrist or something for the
Oh, for
show.
sure.
Oh, I'm
yeah.
sure, yeah.
That is like so deep.
I mean, they needed a
what
consultant.
They said earlier.
For
Oh, yeah.
Frasier on Cheers, too. Like, I mean, that's
Yeah.
all he did was give, psychiatric
Advice,
advice, yeah.
It's just nowadays with like comedy writing, like that just bring people with no idea of like the subject, and like they just kind of wing it. It's nice to see in these old ones where like
It's
they
an
really put
interesting,
in the work.
I mean, I don't know if you guys went through like all the trivia and stuff like this, but it's obviously rife with Cheers info. But every cast member on Cheers was on Frasier at one point, with exception to Coach, who was obviously dead,
R&B coach.
and Kirstie Alley. Kirstie Alley would not be on the show because it's basically
she's a
rooted in
Scientologist.
psychiatry, which is
Right.
not in Scientology. So she refused to be on the show because of that, which is silly as fuck. First of all, it's like you're an actor.
You're an actor.
Like you, like this is what you do. You pretend, okay? You don't
I like
have
that-
to.
It's like being on a show about psychiatry is too much for her, but talking dogs totally passes the test. Like, no, that's way
Well,
more
I mean,
realistic.
She worships lizards and shit.
I was
but,
gonna say, doesn't she worship like aliens?
Well,
She doesn't worship
wherever-
anything anymore.
I
gonna
can
say-
get into it if you want. I know the whole story. But
She better
I don't
hope
wanna
she's
get in
right.
trouble with Scientology.
Yeah, I was gonna say we could talk a lot about it, but I'm also trying to bite my tongue a little. To
Yeah,
not have
oh yeah,
those
big
people.
time.
I don't want to be labeled a suppressive person and have somebody showing up after me.
I don't think.
I didn't know, and I don't remember talking about this when we did Cheers, but did you know Shelley Long hated Kelsey Grammer
I had
and
heard
his
that.
character and constantly lobbied to get his character removed from Cheers? Because, and I this didn't say this, but the only reason I can think is that they're too similar. Like they were both like the educated,
Neurotic, smart.
educated, like
Yeah.
right. And then when because she did appear on Frasier, it was like how they buried the hatchet, apparently. But I didn't know that they did not like each other. Well, she didn't like him, and I apparently, went both ways eventually. But I thought that was interesting.
I think it
She
makes a
must
lot
have
of
not
sense. It
liked-
probably is because the characters were so similar, and it steps on each other's toes, right?
Yeah.
If they give him a witty, smart line, that's something that you could be like, I could have said that. Why didn't you give that to me?
Right. And at a certain point, it probably got, because if you had to pick, right, as a fan of the show, which character you'd rather see leave, you would want Frasier to stay. Because Diane can fuck off, right? Like, Frasier is easily more entertaining than she is.
Yeah, if you go back to Cheers episode, you'll remember how much I hated Diane.
Yeah,
I
mean,
like Diane on
she's-
Cheers, but Frasier has more breadth to him because the show makes more sense if Sam's not dating anybody, because then you can have different guest stars every week that are his
Right,
girlfriends and add all different scenarios from that.
So yeah, and then just real quick, there is a credit scene, and it's Fraser's apartment, and you got him, his dad, Daphne, and the dog are all just sitting together watching a movie, and you see Daphne and Martin are both having a beer, and Fraser's trying to read, and the dog's just staring at him the whole time. And at the end, like the dog puts his paw up on Fraser. The dog was like, I don't know how you would cue that because it was nothing.
Great dog acting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There had to be someone like off camera, right? Throwing a signal for the dog to throw his paw up.
Yeah,
But-
it has to be.
And we hear
He
the
just
song.
did it because it was adorable.
I did not know Kelsey Grammer sang the song.
Really? You didn't know that?
Yeah, I had no idea. I mean, now that I know,
Really?
it makes sense, but I didn't know it was him.
Hey, baby, I hear the blues are calling. Toss salads and scrambled eggs.
Is Kelsey Grammer here right now?
Then Jay just falls off a stage immediately.
Now, Jay, sing that, but in Bobcat Goldthwait's voice.
I will off air, I promise. I'm not going to. So I was reading up. So I guess 11 years ago, someone got in touch finally, like to interview the writer of the song. Because they were like, hey, what's that all about? Because no one understood the whole tossed salad and scrambled egg thing.
Because those two meals those two food groups don't go together.
Yeah, so I guess the theory was when the guy who wrote the song was approached to do it, he was told that he cannot mention anything about psychiatry or like specific to the characters in the song. He wrote tossed salads and scrambled eggs because they're like the patients, they're both mixed up.
That's interesting.
That's
Yeah.
artistic liberty.
So yeah,
I
when you
like
hear
that
it,
though. No, I think that's a good. Like,
it's
that's
subtle.
Yeah,
But
it's
they
a
never
fun little
explained
license
it.
with it.
But yeah,
Why
so when
was
you
he
hear
given those directions, you can't
I don't know.
mention the show or psychiatry. At
Yeah.
least psychiatry.
they probably didn't want anything that was like too obvious. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe they didn't want something too on the nose.
This person's crazy, and there's the Space Needle. Like, what is, like, wait, why are we being so obvious right now?
What would ours be?
It'd be Bobcat Goldthwait singing the Cheers theme song, but like the weird version that has all the stuff about like
killing yourself.
No, it would be
killing
Bobcat
yourself, all the fucking
Goldthwait
crazy lyrics.
singing Danger Zone.
Come on, Jay, let's try it.
How do you know the song but not
He knows the
movie?
song though.
No, he said it wrong. He said, "Welcome to the Danger Zone."
He knows the melody, which is more than I was expecting.
Yeah,
so.
true.
Yeah,
Because I've seen Top Gun. It
Sure.
just
I
doesn't
don't
live
believe
in
you
my
have.
head.
I honestly don't think you have, man.
I watched it in theaters when they brought it back in the Somerville Theater like 4 years ago.
Who's the
You know what else?
antagonist in the movie?
Goose.
Goose is not the antagonist.
Goose is not the antagonist.
It's the guy in the fucking academy.
his
Who's a
partner?
very famous actor? Who is
I
it?
don't fucking know.
I
his
sent
name.
you guys
Val
a gif of
Kilmer.
him the other day.
Oh, that's right. That's right. It is.
You
Val
have
Kilmer.
not seen this movie. There's
have.
nothing
I
you could do to convince
swear
me
on
that.
my
He made
life,
up a
I have.
fictional story about seeing it 4 years ago and it got back. Something Bill
How dare you
did.
smirch Val Kilmer this way?
Why? The worst Batman of all time, by the way.
Oh, that is
No,
false.
Clooney is the worst Batman.
Clooney is the
No,
worst
Clooney's
It goes-
above Val Kilmer.
No
Keaton,
way.
Kilmer.
Affleck.
Oh wait, no, Affleck is the worst Batman on
No,
No,
he's not.
maybe,
He's a
yeah.
great
Kilmer.
Batman.
I've never seen
he's
him.
the worst Batman.
I personally think Christian Bale got way too much credit.
I love Christian Bale.
I like
hate
those movies,
Christian
but I
Bale.
agree. I mean, I still think Keaton's the absolute winner for me. But I think that Ben
100%.
Affleck Batman, I can't fucking handle.
I didn't like Christian Bale's Batman voice. That was my only problem. But I thought he was
cancer.
So, Jay, can you do the Batman voice?
probably.
I say just make it a little bit higher, and you get Bobcat Goldthwait.
It's not remotely the same.
Why would you prove it? Do a
Apparently, he's also never seen Batman.
Yeah, you know Batman, that movie where the two friends are in flight school together.
But they'd be flying like bats.
Do you think
Iceman.
Top Gun is a Batman villain? Has this been the confusion the whole time?
Top Gun with Arnold Schwarzenegger as Iceman?
Yeah. Okay.
I've seen the movie.
I don't believe you.
In any event, guys, so we covered the whole episode. As far as Frasier goes as a whole, anything you guys want to add to it? Did we cover it all?
I think we did a pretty good job, but
I think we
That's
nailed
just
it,
me.
dude.
I would like to say that if I lived in Seattle in 1993, I would listen to Frasier Crane's radio all the time because I would much rather listen to that than any of
Nirvana.
the bullshit garbage music coming out of Seattle in 1993, like
Oh.
Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, or Nirvana.
I love Nirvana. I hate you so much.
Well, I'm just stating the facts here.
I'm with Joe.
Soundgarden's
Thank you.
not bad. I've revisited them in Nirvana.
I would say
Recently.
maybe had Kurt called Frasier Crane's radio show, things would be different, but that's not the case because Courtney.
Oh, is
had
that you
him
finally
killed.
admitting he blasted his own?
No, he
brains
didn't
out?
let me finish because I said because it would have been
We
unnecessary.
definitely talked to the podcast about this because Gordon didn't know who El Duce was, and I think we had to go send him down that rabbit hole.
but he does know who La Mancha is.
It's a classic. Because we watched that musical, The Man of La Mancha.
Don Quixote.
Yes.
But yeah, no, so yeah, it's weird. Frasier's one of those shows that I've seen so much of it when it was in its original run, but I hadn't watched it since because again, I don't think it was syndicated much afterwards, and then I don't know, I haven't really thought to watch it in streaming. But yeah, it just one of those shows that lasted so long, and I'm very curious how they tackle this. I don't know if it's a reboot or if it's a not reboot, but it's like the next season going to be considered season 12, or is it like a new Frasier season 1?
It's a good question. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like when Roseanne came back and they did the 2 seasons as Roseanne, they were like seasons 10 and 11 or whatever, and then they switched over to the Connors and it was like the Connors season 1. So it's
For
always hard to gauge how they're
Yeah.
going to do these shows because it's a pretty abrupt reboot.
it's actually kind of important because in one instance we could do the episode, in another we can't.
Yeah,
That's
if it's-
true.
Yeah.
You
Now
know?
I wonder where it's back in Boston. There's going to be a moment where he's at Cheers, right?
Gotta be.
He has to. Well, Cheers doesn't exist anymore.
True.
The last episode it closes, so
But
There's
I
gonna be
imagine
some-
you maybe
yeah.
run into somebody, like you have to bring back the characters for at least some hello, right?
There'll be
At least
something.
He'll run into Norm and Sam.
yeah, I'm sure they'll do something. I don't know if they'll do it in the first episode, but they'll definitely do
I
something.
If
think they'll
it's-
cycle
if
them
it-
in.
Do they say where it's going, that show? Is that show going to be like on network television, or is it going to be on Netflix?
I would imagine it'd be a Peacock
Or
original,
like a
right?
Peacock
'Cause
original? Is it going to be like a streaming original?
I don't know,
assume
but I would
Peacock,
think that
but
they're
I
probably going to
don't
do
know.
broadcast TV because it was such a big show and they're dying for ratings right now. They'll put something on that people will
Because if
watch.
they put
Will
it
and
on a
Grace did
streaming
really well on
network,
TV.
I guarantee they'll go cameo heavy early in the first couple episodes.
Oh, that 90s show style.
Yeah.
Paramount Plus is doing it.
Oh,
Damn it.
exclusively? Damn.
Yeah.
Looks like I gotta get Paramount Plus. I say it all the time. It's like the
Same.
only one I don't have, and it has so much shit I want to watch.
There is some good stuff on there,
Yeah, like-
honestly.
Every episode, Ferg and I are like, I just want to watch Bar Rescue. We never buy Paramount Plus.
I need to see John Taffer yell at people.
But yeah, I mean, I guess at this point, there's nothing left to do but the green light or cancel. So I'm going to go in the reverse order I see you in today. Ferg, starting with you.
All right, let's start by saying I'm not a Frasier fan. I think the show as a whole is terrible, really boring. However, I thought this was an excellent pilot. I laughed a lot, and it's a lot of my hatred's going back by memory. So pilot's actually good enough for me to even say I'm probably going to give this another chance. So green light for me. I'm very surprised green light. I didn't want to do this show at all.
I was curious, and I had a feeling after watching it myself, because you were very vocally not happy that we were going to be doing this show. And when I watched it today, having not seen this episode in a while, I was like, you know what? I think this could flip him, because it's not what he remembers necessarily. But, Joe, next.
Yeah, this is a show I never watched when it was new. Like I said earlier, it felt like an older person show. It seemed boring. As much as I love Cheers, I just like couldn't get behind it. And I'm a little mad at myself for never giving it the chance, especially being such a TV weirdo junkie. Because I thought this pilot was fantastic. I liked all the devices they did. I thought they introduced all the characters well. They gave enough exposition and backstory to not make it feel too shoehorned in, and then just let it go, right? Like they're like, and now we're off onto our own thing. I'm with Ferg. I might give this show a chance. I really, really weirdly enjoyed this pilot way more than I thought I would. Just like you, Ferg, I was like, I'm kind of dreading watching this. This is going to be a slog. I'd rather just watch Cheers again. But this was kind of great. Green light.
Nick.
I mean, same. I wasn't into it when I was younger. I just remember, much like not Cheers, much like MASH. Once the intro started playing, I was like, change the channel. Like I don't want it. But this pilot caught me, and I really enjoyed it. I'm going to keep. This was the first episode for the show that I actually watched with my girlfriend, and I had to explain to her why I couldn't keep watching the next episode because it just started playing. I said, I can't do it, but we'll watch it. And I think it's going to be my new bedtime show because I'm really interested, and I get to see it for the first time, essentially, because I never really watched it. It's got a smaller cast in a sense that there's really only 3, maybe 4 people who are on the screen at the same time for most of it. It seems like that way anyways. I'm not sure exactly, but that's the way it seems. So you're not inundated with a ton of characters like some shows do, and the characters that are there are really interesting. And they hit you with a good story. So I'm really interested to see where it goes, and I enjoyed the pilot, so it's a green light.
Just real quick, do you really want to make that your bedtime show? You don't want to do a bedtime show with something you're watching because then you fall asleep and you
that's
get
a good
10 episodes
point.
ahead and you can't find.
I hate that the next morning where you're trying to go back into the stream.
The middle of an
like, where the fuck
episode?
did I fall asleep?
Yeah, maybe it's like the before you make it to bed show, like
Yeah.
while you're still in the living room, like I'll throw on a couple episodes and then you go to your bedtime TV.
I was
That's a
going to
good
say
point,
too,
yeah.
Joe, when you were talking about how this would be like a show you would listen to, like Frasier's actual radio show, I was like, I wouldn't do it while driving because his voice is like very easy to fall asleep to.
Oh, yeah, it's dangerous. NPR territory. We were like, they're talking about cars, and I'm still sleepy. What's going on with this?
Gordo, you're up.
Yeah, so I remember this show. I remember not liking it as a kid, but I can see why it won a lot of awards that it did this particular episode. It was a really well done pilot. Like the acting was just out of this world, I think. Maybe some of the best that we've done. From being able to tell like a story and being able to have it flip and not feel weird, or feel cheesy. Like it had everything. It had humor, it had like tugging on my heartstrings, and it had a cute dog. So, green light for me.
A
Yeah, I
cute dog
mean-
will always get Gordo.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not going to differentiate from the rest of you guys. I've said it throughout it. I really enjoyed this. I enjoyed it more than a lot of shows we've covered in the past, as far as just how well I thought everything came together. I kept talking about the writing. I just thought it was really, really smart writing. The characters were already on point. It was just really good spinoff that wasn't trying too hard to capitalize on the success of the show that it's branching off of. And branching off of a show as big as Cheers, and basically as soon as it ended too, they could have tried a lot harder just to use that as leverage, and they didn't. And I really enjoy that. And yeah, I watched a lot of it as a kid. I remember pieces of it because we were young, and I was just kind of watching it because my mom had it on. But I am a little interested to keep watching it, and my very limited time to watch any bonus TV. But yeah, I thought it was great. So that being said, guys, 5 out of 5 for Frasier. Oh, good Lord. In a rare air for us. So congrats to Frasier. You do live on to see episode 2. And that's all the time we have for this week, guys. Thanks for listening. Again, go to S1E1pod.com. I can't stress this enough. Go there, find all our links, subscribe, rate, review, do all that fun stuff. Find our Twitter, find our Instagram, give us a follow, hit us up, say hi, click those likes. We really appreciate it. We put in the work, so we like to see that you guys are enjoying everything. We know you guys are out there, so that's why we want to see the engagement on social media because, like I said, we see the download count, so we know you guys are listening.
At this point, we have multiple times just sent a bunch of free crap to people just because they interact with us.
Yeah.
So get out there and interact with us, and you might just get a bunch of free crap sent to you.
Like
Free for you,
shit?
not me.
Oh, it's just shipping fees. You're fine.
I buy the things, I send them.
Just send us fucking requests for the money. You can't not ask us for money and then complain about it.
Yeah, if you tell us how much it is, we'll give you money, man.
That's a different conversation. I'm not complaining to you
So it's
guys.
gotta
I'm
be
saying,
the martyr, you bitch.
in any event, guys, yeah, hit up our Instagram and Twitter again. We put out a lot of content. There's basically daily tweets, not daily Instagram posts, but quite often, about 6 to 7 a week. So, yeah, give us follows there, guys. We appreciate it. But if you do, send us some notes. Let us know shows you want to hear. We want to cover more of those shows because, like this, fan picks, I don't know when we would have got to Frasier. But someone brought it up. Here we are doing it, and now it's getting a 5 out of 5. So, yeah, that being said, guys, that's all the time we have for this week. Thanks for giving us a listen. Spread the word. Tell your friends. We'll catch you again next week. Goodbye.
I think we got the best African erotic art.